Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Now, all eyes are on Labour this morning and the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. But isn't it the case that the difficult economic circumstances that she faces, a country that's severely indebted and facing very severe fiscal challenges, is actually a result of a Conservative legacy?
Yeah, Miriam, there is some truth in that. My disappointment with the last Conservative government is it left office with debt at its highest level imaginable, with taxes higher than at any stage since Clement Attlee's post-war government, and with spending out of control, and with regulation going up. That wasn't much of a legacy. I wish the Conservatives had been braver in office and indeed more conservative in office. But the problem is that Rachel Reeves wasn't saying that in opposition at the time. It wasn't Labour's prescription to cut taxes, to encourage work, to get public spending under control, to deregulate. At every turn, they were suggesting that the Conservatives should have gone further still in raising taxes and raising regulations. So when we hear, which we have just a few minutes ago in your news bulletin, that Rachel Reeves says that she must go further and faster to promote growth, the problem is that she's gone quite far and pretty damn fast in exactly the wrong direction. Public spending up, taxes up, and regulation up. So there needs to be a screeching U-turn if you're really serious about economic growth. You need to get tax down, the government off people's backs, both in terms of how much it spends, but also in how it regulates. And there's been precious little sign that Labour's up for that recipe, for that prescription.
And Mark, we're hearing from the Telegraph today, they're reporting that Donald Trump is to blame for this unexpected contraction in Britain's economy. How much weight does she have behind that perspective?
Well, you know what? You can always look at these, as Benedict Spence was just saying, these sort of rounding errors of decimal points. And, you know, possibly, let's just say that the 0.1% is down to Donald Trump. It would otherwise be 0% then. But these numbers are not heroic, to put it marginally there. I mean, these are catastrophic numbers in terms of overall economic growth and have been for a while. I mean, it used to be the case that a Western economy could confidently expect the basic norm to be to grow at 2.5%, 3% per annum. That looks beyond us now. That would have been the norm. Now, bumpy rides and what the President of the United States might say and whether there's a conflict going on in some part of the world, those all have an impact.
But Mark,
your baseline needs to be 2 or 3%.
It did. But Mark, that was because post-war we had this baby boom, we had this huge new population that came of age during the Thatcher and Reagan term. They became to their most productive working age during the Thatcher and Reagan term and contributed a huge amount to that growth in GDP. But for 40 or more years, we've had below replacement birth rates. So each year we have fewer young people coming into work than we have people retiring. We've tried to replace that with immigration, but that absolutely does not have the same impact on productivity. Isn't it time for politicians of both sides to get real and say that actually our growth problems are demographic at their core?
You know, Miriam, you may have a very good point there. That's probably not something that Rachel Reeves could solve in her spring statement. That's a generational approach. I admire those long-term approaches, right? But the birth rate problem is not going to be solved by one statement. What we can do in the shorter term, although I applaud that longer term analysis, is at least make it easier for those entrepreneurs and workers that we've got. So we're in the appalling situation in Britain in which more millionaires are fleeing the UK than any other country in the world bar China. Now, maybe you're right, Miriam, in a generation or two's time, we want many more people and many more of them to be millionaires. But in the meantime, wouldn't it be a good idea to have a tax plan and a regulatory plan that doesn't just keep British millionaires in Britain, but encourages more millionaires to flock to Britain? At the moment, our entire economic plan has been the opposite. And if you start losing those talented people, or even if they are simply wealthy and retired, don't be surprised when the economy starts to slip. That's exactly what we're witnessing. So I want some short-term fixes to actually encourage enterprise and growth, to stop believing that we can live in this fictional state in which everybody lives at everybody else's expense and we continue to soak the rich more and more and more. That's now probably reducing government revenues, a short-term fix. But then, Miriam, I'm rather with you. We've got to have a long, hard look about how we're going to get Britain back on track over the next 10 or 20 years, not just over the next 10 or 12 days in the lead up to the spring statement.
Mark Littlewood, thank you very much, Director of Popular Conservatives. Thank you for your analysis.
Well, thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed that video, please make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the Popcon YouTube channel. You can also find out more about us on our website, popularconservatism.com, and you can follow us on social media. Details are in the show notes below.